Hello viewers, thank you for returning for another anime review. My verdict of this show should surprise no one. School Days is easily one of the most hated anime out there, which is actually most of what compelled me to finally watch it. Otherwise, this isn't the type of show I would pick for myself. The basis of its plot is everything I hate about the romance genre. Gossip, love triangles, and poor decisions brought on by lack of common sense and/or general decency. So beware for spoilers, and here we go. So, for anyone who's even later to this party than I am, our story starts when our main protagonist, Makoto Ito, develops a crush on Kotonoha Katsura, and it's no coincidence that she happens to be the girl with the largest breasts in their grade because being a sex-obsessed hormonal teenager is the extent of Makoto's character. Completing our main trio is Sekai Saionji, another girl who befriends Makoto and plays matchmaker to the other two, only to fall in love with him herself. Okay, so every story has a point of no return where it becomes clear that disaster is inevitable. By the end of episode 3, we've already reached that point. Nice as she may be to look at, Kotonoha doesn't want to rush into the real touchy-feely stuff, so Makoto quickly loses interest in her. Meanwhile, Sekai's dating advice has already been becoming increasingly hands-on, so his focus shifts to her. Now, the disaster here isn't that Makoto can't sort out which girl he's more attracted to. The disaster is that Makoto's an idiot. Now, the most logical course of action here would have been to just break things off with Kotonoha, who up to this point didn't seem that into him anyway, but instead Makoto decides he's just going to avoid her and carry on with Sekai in secret, and of course it can't even be a simple mess. Makoto's not exactly discreet, and other girls around the school have no problem telling Kotonoha what's going on. Likely because every single girl in this school seems to have a thing for Makoto, despite the fact that to say he's bland would be generous. And it's around this time that the only even remotely likable character in this show becomes unbearably irrational. Go figure, by this time Kotonoha has really become infatuated with Makoto and does that crazy thing where a girl finds out her boyfriend is cheating and decides to blame the girls he's cheating with. Yes. Girls. Plural. Because it's not just Sekai. Makoto sleeps with just about every girl who's important enough to be named, thankfully with the exception of Kotonoha's little sister. Which isn't to say that I could remember most of their names without Google's help. The majority of the girls' character designs and personalities were nearly indistinguishable from one another. In the last 4 episodes, everything just spirals out of control. Makoto's best friend rapes Kotonoha, causing her to go off the deep end emotionally and mentally. Makoto sleeps with like 7 different girls, causing Sekai to go off the deep end. Now, as most everyone who's even vaguely acquainted with this show already knows, School Days ends with both girls going psychotic. Sekai finds out 2 things in these final episodes. 1, he's been cheating, surprise surprise, and 2, she's pregnant. But when she tells Makoto this, he returns to Kotonoha. It's almost funny that Sekai thought he would step up and take responsibility. Nope, he tells her to get an abortion, so she shows up at his house and stabs him to death, only to be cornered by Kotonoha, who knifes her to death and then rips open her womb, supposedly revealing that Sekai lied about her pregnancy. And the final scene of this show depicts Kotonoha cradling Makoto's severed head as her boat floats down the river. Yeah. Where to even start with this critique? Well, first, where the hell are the parents in this show? At one point, Sekai was practically living in Makoto's apartment. Most kids are lucky if they can sneak in one night and not get caught. The total absence of any parental figure in this show only served to make the characters even less relatable than they already were. Which maybe was no coincidence. Maybe the absent parents were supposed to be a clue that something traumatic was going on in their family lives, which is the only way I can justify these characters being so dependent on such a shaky relationship. School Days is really a soap opera disguised as an anime. That's what's going on here. Except all the drama fell flat because I felt no connection to any of the characters. But I think the most frustrating thing about this show is that it didn't have to become the total disaster that it did. At the beginning, this show had potential. Makoto was just an average guy. Given some character development, he could have been likable. Kotonoha was the only one I had any sympathy for before she lost her mind over Makoto. Early on, Sekai really did seem to have good intentions until she lost her mind over Makoto and destroyed her conscience. I stand by that this show had potential, but the characters were sacrificed by shock value. It still wouldn't have been anything particularly interesting, but it wouldn't have been particularly despicable either. Now, the last note I would like to touch upon is Makoto himself. As well as people ranking this as one of the worst anime ever, a lot of people seem to view Makoto as one of the worst anime characters ever, and I'm not entirely sure I agree. Granted, his actions were despicable, but I wouldn't say Makoto was purposefully cruel. He didn't really want to hurt anyone. His main problem is just that he's really immature. He could only see the situation as it was right in front of him. He couldn't process how any of these would have consequences and affect his future. He chose the easiest way out, which was to continue as he was doing, and ignore the fact that all these girls wouldn't take it very well when they found out that he was sleeping with all of them. His reaction to Sekai originally feeling guilty about her being involved with him cheating on Kotonoha was that of course they can't tell her because she would be mad. Well, duh. But he didn't want to face any of the consequences, so he just kept going with whatever was going to make him happy until he couldn't avoid the consequences any longer. And thus we have our ending. But that said, I've seen a lot of controversy over the ending too, and with that view, I don't think he deserved to die. In some twisted way that is acceptable just because they're unlikable fictional characters, the ending was some satisfying twist of fate, but neither of them deserved to die. The real problem at the end was that both girls had gone crazy, not that Makoto was finally getting what he deserved. So, I ignored everyone else's advice, but please take mine. The ending was not worth sitting through the first 11.5 episodes. Thank you for watching.